Welcome to the Record Player, everyone. Scott with you. We are back again with another classic Canadian Monday, and today we are featuring one of this country's best bands, coming out of the Quebec music scene in the early '80s with hits like "Closer Together," "My Dreams of You," "Walk Away," "Ordinary People," and of course "L'Affaire Dumoutier." I am thrilled to have with me today the founder of the Box, singer songwriter Jean Marc Pisapia. Welcome to TRP, Jean Marc. How are you?
Thank you for having me. And I'm fine, thank you. Regardless of this terrible cold I have.
A little
So
wonderful.
I'm telling your audience right now, if you see me coughing like hell, it's only normal. Don't worry.
That's okay. It's going around. You are forgiven. I'm talking about the Box, of course, and we are the Record Player. So would be remiss not to show you a few of these. You guys, I've got them all here, so I won't go through them all. Um, I want to talk about a lot of things today. I'll start by saying how glad I am that you guys are back out on the road touring this year. I saw you guys live probably three or four times back in the day, first go around, and every time it was an amazing show. You guys split up in the early '90s, '92 or '93 somewhere, and then you reconvened the band in around 2005. So 15 years or so on the road, back on the road. Um, the first time in that, or sorry, 15 years on the road the first time about, and then 20 years now back on the road. What is the main difference between life on the road now as opposed to then? I mean, other than the fact that the audience has gotten a little bit older and we have to sit down because our knees hurt. What's the biggest difference between the two?
It has everything to do with us and not with the audience. The audiences are always perfect. With us, it's day and night because back in the day, we were on the road because we had to, because we needed to, because it was the business.
Yeah.
And now we do it because we want to. We don't have to. And the business has changed so much that even if we had a record out there to sell or something like that, being on the road all the time, I'm not even sure would make any difference at all. So the only reason why we're out there playing is because we want to. We have fun doing it, and it shows. If you see one of our latest shows with this lineup that has existed since 2005 and not changed, by the way, you can see right there that we're just a bunch of idiots having fun on stage, and it shows, and people just get in. I mean, the first half of the show, we do some more recent material, and then in the second half of the show, all the hits that you mentioned there, plus others, we just do them one after the other. And once the party has taken, there's no going back. It just lasts until the end of the show. And the one thing that we see now is that the audience is getting older, and yet it's getting younger because we're having more and more of these kids under 20, who show up at our gigs. And when I ask them, what the hell are you doing here? Well, it's our parents or our grandparents. Yeah. Which doesn't make me any younger.
Uh, some bands at the time, maybe, I mean, they thrived on that pressure of the demands of the record company and making a record and selling out stadiums and that type of thing. Do you think that had maybe those demands and that kind of pressure had a little bit to do with the band splitting up back in the
It
day?
had it had everything to do with it. Yeah. It had everything to do with it. We just were pressed like a lemon. And at the end of 12 years of being all over the place all the time, without managing our personal lives in any shape, way, or form, we were just on the road all the time, recording an album here or there. And it was just no way to lead a life. And of course, the record company people were extremely competent as far as putting all of that on the market. But the one flaw that our management had and that we had was that we didn't know how to manage our own lives. And that's what actually killed us.
Hmm.
Yep.
Um, for the decade that you were split up and not performing as the Box, you were still involved musically. You were still your day job became music. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. I built a studio in my own house. and I started making music on my own for all sorts of projects, whether it's movies, documentaries, jingles, a lot of jingles. I made maybe 500 of them. Then I wrote music for other people and all that. And I also had pet projects on the side, which involved me being on stage. So I remember particularly we used to go out and play every Tuesday in a bar in Montreal called the Set S-E-T, as in movie set, because it was all the people from the movie industry that finished super late at night who would go there and have a drink after work. And we would go there and entertain them with some very funny projects. And by the way, it's the people that accompanied me on that pet project who eventually said, when I proposed to do the box again, who said yes, because the band said no. When I went to see the band to start the box again, because there was pressure from the industry for us to get back together, they didn't want to have anything to do with it. Absolutely nothing. They just said, no, Jean Marc, I'm sorry. We're not going back there. That's it. We have our lives now. We do what we want. There's no way we're going back to that hell. And so I proposed those guys, and they all said, oh, absolutely, because they're all younger than me, about 10 years, and they're all old box fans. So it was just perfect.
Did the old guys see how much fun it is and say, damn, should have done that?
They have seen, yes,
Yeah.
but they have not said, damn, we should have done that. No, no, no. They're very appreciative of the fact that, well, first of all, they see what the difference is themselves because they knew they were there. And they absolutely, it's right there for all to see that we're having a gas on stage. But it doesn't matter. It's a kind of lifestyle that they wouldn't go back to under any circumstance. And I get it.
Yeah. You and I have something in common in that Genesis kind of changed our lives a little bit. For me, I saw them live, and anything else that I saw live after that had to measure up to it. So, which hasn't happened since, to be honest. For you, it was seeing Genesis that kind of started this whole thing for you. Was that the Duke tour? I mean, 1981, around that era at that time.
No, it was 1978.
Oh, okay.
It was And Then There Were Three tour.
Awesome.
And it's a friend of mine who then became a founding member of the Box, whom I attended architecture school with, who forced me to go see it. Because I didn't like to go and see rock shows, believe it or not. I just didn't like it, the big crowds and all that. But, and he said, we have to go see that band, Genesis, blah, blah, blah. It's great, blah. And I knew Genesis was a great band. And they had just switched from progressive to being more. Anyway, long story short, I'm sitting there, I'm watching these three guys, because at that point there are only three. There are accompanying musicians, but from the original members, there's only three remaining. And the Montreal Forum is like jam-packed with maybe 15,000 people. And the noise that these people made, that the crowd made. And I thought, isn't it funny that only three people on stage with music, songs, can create such an extraordinary thing. And so I remember very well having told that friend on the way out, as we were walking on the street, I said, I think I know what I want to do for a living now, because I was already doing music. And I said, I think I want to do that. So in 10 years, I will be back here at the Montreal Forum with my band, and I'm going to do exactly what these people are doing. And he laughed.
How long?
And he really, oh yeah, he laughed. He said, that's right. Do that, my good. Right.
How long did it take?
And we did it 9.
9.
Actually, 9 years. And he was in it. And he was part of it. Yeah, 9 years. And we went from garage band to the Montreal Forum. In fact, in 5 years, because we had to finish architectural school before we did anything. And well, whatever. It's yeah, so it all started there. I got an enlightenment, let's put it that way.
Somebody told me that you, in the early days of the Box, went on stage sometimes dressed up like Gabriel.
Well, no, not like Gabriel, but inspired by.
No,
Yes,
okay,
certainly.
that same.
Yeah, inspired by him. We used to wear costumes. For example, when we played L'Affaire Dumoutier, which is a police story, which is a murder story, which features this police officer, which I play in the video. Well, I would put the suit on, and I'd go do that song with the suit on, etc. So it looked a little bit like we were inspired by Genesis, which is true, we were. as far as coming on stage and putting costumes on, that sort of thing. Yeah, absolutely.
It didn't start with just the box. I mean, you were originally with Ivan in Men Without Hats. How did that come about?
Complete happenstance. First of all, Ivan and I used to, and that guy I was talking to you about, Luc, the guy I was at the forum with, we were all at the same school. It's a French lycée in Montreal called Collège Stanislas, and we all attended that. And so I knew Ivan from back then. Then he went to do communications at university while I did architecture. And then by complete happenstance, we meet on the street and we decide to go for a coffee in a restaurant and we start talking. Yeah, I got this band. It's called Men Without Hats. And we just released an EP with 4 songs and it's cool and blah, blah, blah. And there were only 2 people in that band by that time. And I said, well, I make music too. And Luc was there and we talked and blah. And then we started making music just for fun, like jamming at my place, at his place, that sort of thing. And eventually he was offered to do a US Eastern Seaboard tour. And he needed someone to do part of the keyboards.
Yeah.
Because there were only 2 people in the band. And so he asked me, he said, would you like to do it? And I said, oh, absolutely. And so that's how I picked up that job. But I knew very well early on in the process that although I was a full member of the band, after about a year, I knew that I couldn't completely express what I wanted with that band because I would have needed to sing. And I didn't think that Ivan would put up with 2 lead singers the way Supertramp operate, for example. I didn't think he was going to go for it. So after about a year, I said, hey, good luck with everything, but I'm starting my own thing. And I kept the same management. That's the very important story. I kept the same manager, and when we were ready to hit the stores and everything, the Safety Dance was a big hit all over the world. And so that opened a lot of doors for us, and it made things really a lot simpler because the managers had acquired a credibility which otherwise they wouldn't have had.
How often? I mean, you guys are back out on the road. You've been out for 20 years now. Men Without Hats have been. I don't think they ever stopped going out on the road. How often do you guys cross paths now?
Oh, we've crossed paths many times, maybe 5, 6 times in 20 years, and I think we're about to again next summer.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. We
Sorry, there's another branch to the family tree here. I always say that 3 of the greatest things to ever come out of Quebec was Men Without Hats, the box, and of course the lovely Sass Jordan. She started with you guys as well. She was a backup singer for the box at the time.
Yeah, she stayed with us for 5 years, and she had everything to succeed. And when I say everything, I mean everything inside of her. She had the character to do it. She had the patience. She had the strength. She had everything. She was a real trooper. That's the way I like to call her. Whenever someone asks me about Sass, I just describe her that way. She was a trooper. She was one of the guys, and she wouldn't be impressed by anything. A real soldier. She was on the front line. And I wasn't surprised at all when I heard about her success in Los Angeles and everything else.
Yeah, she's. I've heard her described as a hurricane. That pretty much sums it up.
Yep.
From a songwriting perspective, I'm going to look down so that I read all these properly. I admire versatility, and when it comes to songwriters, some of my favorite songwriters can do a little bit of everything. One of the reasons why I enjoyed your music so much was because, I mean, you can do the fun, uplifting, songs like Closer Together and My Dreams of You, but also have some songs that were a little bit more of a message to them, a little bit more social messages like Ordinary People, and then right down to songs that were dramatic and had the dramatic flair like L'Affaire de Moutier. L'Affaire de Moutier, well, I'll start with Closer Together. I mean, you wrote that in like a day. Is that true?
Yes, because it was a commission.
Okay.
Closer Together was a commission from Lucan. Lucan is Leukemia Canada.
Okay.
And they were setting up a video, part of a campaign to raise funds for Lucan. And it took the form of a video in which the Montreal Canadiens, who had just won the Stanley Cup in '86, ourselves.
So long ago. Sorry.
Yeah. Martin Sinclair and other people, and some of the sick kids from St. Justin's Hospital, we would all get together and do a phony hockey game at the Montreal Forum on the ice, and we'd interact and all that. And they wanted to have a theme song under the guise of, if we get together, if we come together as a team, team spirit is going to achieve results, nothing else. And so, yeah, I was given the order, and we recorded it, wrote it and recorded it in 24 hours. And then when the record company heard the song, they said, okay, Lucan can do whatever they want with it, but so can we. And it's going to be the first single of the third album, which I was completely in agreement with. So that's the story of that one.
That's awesome. Ordinary People was more serious, a little bit more of a serious message. You guys were always able to have fun, even with the serious messages when it came to the music videos and all that stuff. So the political landscape at that time was a little bit different. How did that song come about?
You remember Korean Airlines 007,
Yep.
that 747 that was shot over the Sakhalin Islands in Russia?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Sting wrote a song called Russians,
Yep.
in which he says clearly, I hope the Russians love their children too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and by the way, I mentioned Sting in the song Ordinary People. In the second verse, I say, I hope there's a Russian Sting who thinks like us
Yep.
and hopes that nothing changes. It was a tense situation because the guy that ran the Soviet Union back in those days was Yuri Andropov, the old chief of the KGB. If you think Putin was a dodgy person, you hadn't seen nothing. This guy was really a real Soviet hardcore type of guy. I mean, come on. To shoot a 747 full of passengers in the air like that because you suspect them of being a spy plane? What pilot doesn't know that a 747 has got nothing to do with spying? It's a passenger plane. The guys were lost. So it was pretty dodgy. It was a time that was a little scary. I mean, talk to me about climate change all you want, okay? Compared to the kind of scare that we were facing when I was 20, climate change is nothing. And so, yeah. And so that song came from there. It was just a climate of uneasiness with the Soviet Union, which was still operating. That was 1986, I believe I wrote that song. And the Berlin Wall didn't come down until 1990.
Yep.
So, yeah, a lot of people were preoccupied. Sting was one of them.
Have you always had a bit of a penchant for that kind of thing and for that kind of knowledge?
Yes.
The original name of the band was of the box was
The Checkpoint Charlie.
which is also has something to do with spies and that kind of
That's right. It has to do with the school that Ivan and I and Luc and more of the guys went to when we were. It was a school. It was a French lycée, so that says it all. It's got nothing to do with the education system of Canada. It's got everything to do with France. And so we learned history was like at the center of things. French, history, and then we learned Latin, a third language, in my case, in Ivan's German, et cetera, et cetera. And the other thing that made it for me is that at the age of 13, I was invited to spend the summer vacations at one of my uncles who lives in Italy. My dad's Italian. All my family is over there. And that particular summer, he wanted to go on an organized trip every summer. And it happened that on that summer, it was the Soviet Union. So I actually visited Moscow and Leningrad in 1971. And I was absolutely shocked by what I saw over there. And that's nothing because 2 days before that, we were in Poland in a place called Krakow. And guess what's just nearby that town? The concentration camp of Auschwitz, Birkenau, was just there, which we visited. So to me, at the age of 13, that was like a handful across the face. And it made me super curious about the history of the 20th century, what caused all of these things to happen. And I just delved into it like crazy. I mean, I'm a history buff like you wouldn't believe. I've read everything about the history of the Western world since the first, even before the First World War. By the age of 21, I was like I could have given a course at university in history. It was stupid. My thing was like I was always in there.
But it makes for great songwriting.
Apparently.
Let's talk about L'Affaire Dumoutier. I have trouble with English, so forgive my French accent there. What an incredible song that was. I mean, for the time, it was unique. It was different. I always think back to that and 19 by Paul Hardcastle, with songs that had the sort of the spoken word element of it, rather than just the singing. I mean, that song played out in the video as well. You mentioned it earlier, played out like a mini movie, and I mean that's some of my favorites.
Yeah.
For things that you can just imagine in your head going further. First up question is, was there ever any talk after the success of that song of turning that into any kind of a feature thing, or was it just this is it, it's the video and that's it?
Okay, well, first of all, it's my favorite song ever from the box.
Yep.
Secondly, it's the video that made the song.
Yep.
Thirdly, the record company, that answers your question right there. The record company didn't even want to put it out as a single.
Well, because it was different.
Because
It wasn't something that they, probably they thought would sell, I'm assuming, right?
Exactly. It was just too different. And secondly, and I was told this literally, a murder story, Jean Marc, on radio and in bars, and people are going to dance to a murder story. And I said, yeah, actually, yeah. And then we insisted, like the bass player and I, we went to see the guys from the record company and we said, we have to put it out now because, as the song says, on the 14th of October, everything happens. And it was like the end of September. And we needed to shoot that video right there and then, because otherwise we'd be in snow. And I could never pretend that we were in France, because the story happens, it took place in France. The real story happened in France. And I wanted the thing to look as if it were happening in France, or at least a French country in Europe, maybe Belgium, whatever. And so we needed to shoot the video right there and then, otherwise we'd be stuck in snow and that wouldn't look credible at all. And so they said, okay, we'll do it, And then it ended up at Much Music and it played like crazy because it was completely unique. Most of the videos in that day were, someone playing the guitar on the bus or in the streets or whatever, and, they were singing their song. Whereas that thing, nobody played a single note of any instrument. Nobody sings. It's just us, the band, playing the different roles. So yeah, I agree that on the point of view of marketing, it was really bad because you didn't even know who the members of the band were. On the other hand, it was so different from everything else that the video just played like crazy.
Yeah, none of that mattered. I mean, it's the one thing that will always stick in my head when it comes to the box is that song and that video.
Voila.
other than seeing you live, of course. Speaking of videos, you guys were around during the video age and the peak of Much Music and all that stuff. Did you guys really enjoy making the videos? I mean, you had a lot to do with the making of the videos. It wasn't just you guys showed up and did what you were doing.
No, we had fun doing them for one very simple reason. Well, the first video we shot wasn't shot by us. And then I taught my lesson. I said it was super bad. And I thought, if I'm going to throw $25,000 out the window next time, I'll do it myself. And so again, I rounded up the record company people and I said, this time I'm doing it. And it was L'Affaire Dumoutier. And I said, we're going to get together, the entire band. We're going to figure out every single shot in that thing. And we hired a company from Toronto to help us actually shoot it. That's it. So it was a lot of fun. And then we did My Dreams of You. The video is a complete spoof of ourselves because My Dreams of You is a love story. And I thought that if we went there and played the love thing, it would be so sticky sweet. It would be like a can of honey fell on our heads. And so I said, no, let's do the opposite. Instead of going there with the violins and everything, let's just spoof ourselves as a bunch of stupid idiots who try to seduce this mysterious woman. I mean, go check the video. It's on YouTube. It's really funny.
I remember her. I remember her very well. Trust me.
That's right. And we had a night of shooting that thing. We never stopped laughing. We were just completely. It was just a fantastic experience because all of the members, again, it's all the members of the band that played their own part. And they're all super good at it. you know? And so we had a fantastic night. We laughed our way through the night and on and on. And then there's one that we couldn't do. That's the one for Carry On, coming back from England. We didn't have time. But then the very last one, Temptation, which was shot in Louisiana, New Orleans, that again, we shot ourselves. I directed it. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. I love doing that.
We've got a couple of minutes left. It's been a while since we've gotten new material. I mean, you've released singles and stuff like that over the past few years, one at a time, kind of the new internet way of doing things. The We got an EP in 2017, 2018.
18.
It's been a while since we've had a full album. I mean, is that something that's kind of on the docket, or or are we at that stage where albums aren't really, quite as
Oh,
important?
well, they aren't. That's for sure. First of all, they cost a fortune and they don't pay anything. Secondly, if you had asked me the same question in 2017, I would have said, no, there are no plans. And yet in 2018, we released an EP, a 4-song EP, 5 actually. And so I would say to you the same thing again. If the conditions are right and we have something to say and we decide to go into the studio and record something, we will. But there's no plan to do so because there's no incentive to do so. So if the incentive is purely creative, we're going to do it, but we never know in advance. Voilà.
But you're always writing, right? You're always
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
and performing some of the new stuff that you've written, but not necessarily recorded. Or
Yes, absolutely, we do. Oh, yeah, absolutely. We released something in 2005, which we do 2 songs of during the show, which are absolutely great. We did another thing in French in 2009 called The Horla, which is a 100% full prog album based on a short story from author Guy de Maupassant, French, from 1887. That was fantastic to do also, and we do one of those songs. And by the way, I need to tell your audience, I know you're in Ontario and it doesn't really, but we're going to be doing the Place des Arts in Montreal, June 7th. So all of you out there watching this, just tell your friends. If you have friends in Montreal or whatever, tell them to buy tickets and go see that thing because that's going to be something. That's going to be memorable.
well, we can't wait to see you. I mean, you're talking about that show in Montreal, but we can't wait to see you here. You're going to be here on May 22nd at Classic Bowl in Mississauga, part of
Yeah.
our good friend Ed Sousa, part of his concert series. You're going to be on the stage, well, not on the stage at the same time, but with
The big stage.
Haywire and Lee Aaron, same night, I believe.
Yeah.
It must be fun I mean, I don't know how good of friends you are with all the rest of these guys, but it must be fun to get to perform shows with artists that came up at the same time as you guys and sort of went through the same thing as you guys, and now we're just doing it for the fun of it, right?
It's just fantastic. We had an opportunity to do that last summer in Saskatoon with Harlequin, Lighthouse, and I don't remember who else. I mean, these guys are just fantastically smooth operating people, and they're a little bit older than us too, and that plays a role. We're very good friends with the Spoons. Yes, it's just fantastic to do that sort of thing. And thanks to Ed Sousa for organizing all these things. I don't know how he does it, but it really, I mean, the guy is really on it. He really is.
I'm not sure either, to be honest with you. When he releases lineups, I'm always like, Jesus,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
just swing that. So May 22nd in Mississauga at Classic Bowl, back at home in Quebec on May 31st and June 7th, which you mentioned, and then back in Toronto on June 13th, but they won't tell me where. So I don't even know that information. I don't even know if you know that information.
No, I don't actually. You're right. No, it's supposed to be, yeah, yeah, yeah. We don't know yet. Yeah,
Maybe one of those surprise pop-up shows that none of us really know what's going
yeah.
on. It has been an absolute pleasure catching up with you. Thank you so much for being with us in the record player.
Will we see you at the Mississauga gig?
I hope so. I hope so. And I'll bring one of these and maybe I can get you to sign it.
Of course. Of course.
Jean Marc Pisapia from The Box. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute joy to chat with you about
All
the
the pleasure was for me.
Thanks, man.
Thank you very much.